Hey everybody, Stephanie here, and today I'm talking about one of my favorite things, travel on a budget. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know I'm on the road a lot, and you probably think, how does she afford this? Well, that's what I'm here today to answer. I am breaking down all of the many ways I've traveled on a budget. There are times it's been an itty bitty budget, there are times it's been a more flexible budget, but whenever I travel, my top goal is always to maximize the value. So hopefully some of these tips will help you do that on your next trip. Now I have to start out with a not so sexy truth, or the sexy truth, depending on how you look at it. Many of the most amazing places I've traveled have been a direct result of my work, meaning I not only had my expenses covered, I also got paid for the work I was doing there. So my first job out of college was actually as an actress on the tour of the musical Cinderella, and that job took me to the Philippines, all over China, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Thailand. I've also gone to Egypt for a show, and I've toured almost all of the contiguous 48 states with shows. I also spent some time working as a singer on a cruise ship, so that gave me the opportunity to circle all of South America and parts of the Caribbean. Now I know this is not a practical option for everyone, but there are many ways to work while seeing the world, whether that's through working on farms with sites like Woof, or getting a gig through Workaway, or by teaching English abroad. In the last few years, I've also been able to fund travel not just through work, but by being able to work remotely, because I don't have to stop earning an income just because I'm not at an office. I can and have done it from the mountains of Colombia to the beaches of Mexico. My final work-related travel saving strategy is to piggyback on business trips. So if you have to fly somewhere for a conference and your work is going to pay for it, maybe you tack on an extra couple of days to enjoy and explore the area. Obviously, you would have to cover all of those added costs, but by already being somewhere for work, you don't have to worry about the big cost of getting there. So I did this when I was working in Manila in the Philippines. I had 5 days off, and I used the time to fly to the island Boracay, also in the Philippines. It was super cheap since I was already in Manila, but it would have been totally cost prohibitive had I had to buy the flight from New York. One of my other biggest travel saving strategies has been to rent out my own place when I'm out of town. Now, this obviously won't work for everyone, and you have to know the local laws in your city and in your building before subletting or renting out your space, but it can be an enormously effective cost-saving method. I've covered the cost of entire vacations with the money I've made renting out my own place while I was away. Now, speaking of housing, let's talk saving on lodging. Planning trips around friends and family you can crash with is obviously a big way to save on these costs. The thank you dinner or gift you buy them will probably be significantly less than the cost of a hotel. Now, I know this strategy might ruffle some feathers, but I've done it and it's been great and really effective at saving me money on travel. Couchsurfing. I would say don't knock it till you try it, but I do understand why it might not be for everyone. That said, I've done it many times, traveling alone in places I didn't know well, and I never had an issue. So that's my endorsement for couchsurfing. If you want to take a step up, try a hostel. I actually just stayed in a hostel last year when I was traveling in Colombia, which brings up another major saving strategy: travel to cheap destinations. My dollar went really far on that trip, and I wasn't even really trying to be frugal. Anyway, back to housing. One of my absolute favorite savings and travel strategies in general is just Airbnb. Not only can you find great deals, but you can get access to really unique spaces. I stayed in an Airbnb in St. Martin that was literally on the beach. I stayed in another Airbnb in Breckenridge, Colorado on the mountain. You just get access to so many more types of housing options when you Airbnb. So I'll post a link to my coupon referral code in the description below if you want to check it out. Finally, for housing, you can always go with a good old-fashioned hotel. Search for deals on sites like Hotwire, Hotels.com, and Trivago. There's always some way to save. The other big budget item for most travel is transit. So when I can, I use public transit to get places. I've also used super cheap options like the Megabus to travel regionally. But when it comes to air travel, I have a bunch of different saving strategies. One is to make use of AIRFARE savings apps. HitList is one that makes it easy to monitor monitor fares and alerts you when there are good deals, showing you how good the prices are based on historical fare data. Similarly, Hopper is an app that analyzes flights to help you find the best deals and the best times to fly. Finally, Skiplagged is an airfare savings app that finds you deals based on hidden city ticketing. For example, I was searching for a flight to Charlotte, but I found it was cheaper to buy a ticket to Atlanta with a connection in Charlotte than it was for me to fly to Charlotte as my final destination. Obviously, you can only do this kind of maneuver if you're booking a one-way flight and you're carrying on your luggage. Now, speaking of checking a bag, I rarely do it, maybe once a year, and even then only if I really have to. I spent 2 weeks in Spain in March and I still packed a carry-on. I don't just like to save on baggage fees, though it definitely adds up, but I find that waiting for luggage is just such a hassle. So it forces me to pack only the things I need, which I think in some way also helps me save. My biggest cost saver on flights, though, is definitely my airline miles. So whenever I travel on business, I make absolutely sure I'm enrolled in any applicable loyalty programs, airlines, hotels, rental cars, etc. But the majority of my miles probably come from my credit card rewards. Now, I don't want to dig deep into the depths of travel hacking here, as it's called, but if you're a responsible credit user, meaning you always pay off your credit card on time and in full, you might want to check out sites like The Points Guy and The Flight Deal to learn about the ways you can maximize your good credit habits for free and low-cost travel. I probably only pay for about 10 or 20% of my flights for personal travel out of pocket. The rest I cover with miles. I've also redeemed my miles for some pretty sweet hotel rooms all over the world, so my miles have served me really well. Now, beyond lodging and transit savings hacks, my other favorite travel saving strategies include traveling in the off-season, the Caribbean, for example, during hurricane season. Obviously, there's a risk your travel plans could be derailed by the weather, so that's the trade-off. I usually never book my trips more than a few days or weeks in advance, so I can usually be informed about any bad weather before I book. Now, speaking of last-minute booking, I'm a big fan of cashing in on last-minute booking deals, which you can find on pretty much any travel site. I know it's not possible for everyone, but if you have some flexibility, last-minute deals can be pretty incredible. I booked a 10-day cruise from Spain to the Canary Islands for $664 on a last-minute promotion. I also booked the round-trip airfare on 3 nights in a hotel in Barcelona with my airline miles, so my only extra costs were food and drink. Now, speaking of food and drink, I have a few saving strategies for those too. Breakfast, I almost always grab from a local grocery store, so a couple bananas, peanut butter, and some bread, and I'm set for the week. You can also do this for lunch and dinner, but I admit I like to splurge a little bit there, so I usually make lunch my most splurge-worthy meal of the day, so I can cash in on that cheaper lunch menu pricing. I also like getting recommendations from locals when possible because they often know of the most fun and cost-effective finds. Finally, activities. Whenever I travel, I do a lot of research on things to do. When reading through the reviews on TripAdvisor, I almost always find some insider savings tips. For example, how to save on parking, or a strategy for scoring a major discount on tickets or free hours at a particular attraction. Doing your due diligence in advance can lead you to so many more cheap and free opportunities. I know that there's always a time cost to doing all this research, but planning my travel is an activity I genuinely love. So I don't mind spending the extra time to dig up the best deals, and for me, the payoff is worth it. That's all from me for now. If you have any favorite strategies for saving on your travels, let me know in the comments. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more money talk and tips for affording a lifestyle you love. Thanks for watching.